Hello and welcome to Is This Pinball, the only podcast discussing the issues of today, namely, is this pinball? Is this not pinball? And how pinball is this? With me, oh my, fuck! I was so
Welcome to Is This Pinball, the only podcast that's brave enough to ask, is this pinball? I am your co-host, Amy Langer, and with me today are Dylan Waits and Willie Caldwell, the same people that will be here every episode.
So we each brought a pinball game to review, right?
Yeah, we each brought a pinball game.
A pinball table.
The pinball game that I brought is Space Adventure Pinball. It's the first thing that comes up when you Google play pinball online. And I have a pretty thorough review. It has settings. The two settings are mute volume and leave settings. So
everything a person needs.
Everything you could possibly need. You get 3 balls, and it's got all your pinball stuff. It's got bumpers, it's got flippers, it's got little lights, it's got multi-ball, it's got multipliers. It does little things that you hit, and then.
So is it pinball?
Yes, ultimately, I would say that objectively it is pinball, and I would probably give it 2 out of 5 pinballs. It's your standard pinball experience. I think for the first Google search, it definitely could have been worse.
Okay.
All right, Dylan, what you got?
I have been playing Zen Pinball's Pinball FX3 or FX3 Pinball. The third one they made. And I've got a lot of tables for that. The one I'm going to be talking about today is from their Marvel Pinball lineup. They have 2 Marvel packages. One is classic Marvel characters, and the other is sort of MCU-oriented, and there's a couple of specifically female empowerment tables.
What are those?
Yes. Sorry, can we speak on those real fast?
They take a bunch of female Marvel heroes and decide they probably shouldn't get their own table, throw them all together into 2 different tables, and they're called like Marvelous Women or like Spectacular Girl Power or something.
That sounds very empowering.
And they said, this is good enough.
This is plenty.
They said,
In fact,
we did it. We won feminism.
What? What?
So I guess really the question at this point is this pinball?
Oh, it's super pinball.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Should I share my pinball game?
Yeah, Amy,
Yeah.
What have you brought for us today?
So my pinball game is from Nintendo. It is Animal Crossing New Horizons, the new Animal Crossing game for the Switch, which I got on the day of its release on March 20th and have been playing every day ever since. For those unfamiliar, you are a human going onto a deserted island, invited there by a anthropomorphic raccoon named Tom Nook and his 2 children, Timmy and Tommy Nook. You're brought to the island, you set up a camp there, and from there you are charged with making the island a better place. So building a museum, upgrading the resident services building, planting trees.
I think better place is kind of
landscaping.
subjective, though, when you think about it. I mean,
That's true. Let me just say, not a better place. You are leaving your mark on the island, however you see fit. So I have chosen to try and make it a nicer place. We also have a friend who's chosen to make.
Place, you mean?
I mean that I've torn down all of the natural features and have replaced it with my own man-made or anthropomorphic animal-made designs.
No, essentially, Animal Crossing New Horizons is what libertarians think the world is.
Absolutely.
Right?
1000%. It's also a great simulator for capitalism because actually it's basically a company town. Tom Nook is the one who invites you, and when he invites you, you can build a house, but then you owe money to Tom Nook in order to upgrade or pay for the house or any facilities on the islands. And the only way to get more in-game money, called bells, is to sell things at Tom Nook's store. So you are selling things to Tom Nook in order to pay Tom Nook. And it's just a cyclic affair from there.
It's a being a 19th century Irishman simulator.
Sure, absolutely. Or Appalachian coal miner. You know, there's many modern analogs.
Although I will say this is that none of your loans have interest, which means that Tom Nook does read the Bible. That's canon.
That's absolutely true. I think it's on the Animal Crossing Wikipedia page. Mm-hmm. So for a pinball game, it's probably not the most intuitive. It's really long form, and there's no real winning or losing, and there's no point system attached to it. It's all very subjective as to what you're actually winning. So I guess in terms of it being a pinball game, it's probably 1 out of 5 pinballs. So it is still in some way pinball. It's just not, because everything is in some way kind of pinball.
That's right.
That's right.
That's a beautiful way to look at the world.
Well, that's the mantra of this podcast, you know.
Everything is in some way kind of pinball.
I mean, it has to be. Otherwise, what are we even doing?
I thought that there's gonna be a segmentation into pinball versus not pinball.
No, everything's pinball now. The thing is,
did we jump the shark in the first episode?
It's 2020 and everything's pinball.
Everything's pinball.
Hold on. I have to go to the bathroom. Can we take a break?
So, in terms of like when we're talking about things again, do we want to what do we want to do next with this particular recording?
Junk it.
What's that?
Junk it.
Dunk it?
No, scrap it. I want to scrap it.
Oh, scrap it? Okay, yeah, we can do it again.
What I'm feeling is like, I don't know what we're doing here.
Right, I would agree.
Like, I don't know what the purpose is. Not in the sense of like to review, but like, what's our ethos? You know what I mean? Like, what do people say that we're doing that not even is unique, but is in some way identifiable? Because the joke got stale like a couple sentences into Willie's review, so that's not it. So like, if that's not it, then you know we're back at square one. We have 3 voices that we like together, but what do they do, and why do they do it? Well, so remember when I was trepidatious about is this pinball and I couldn't put my finger on it?
Yeah.
I think we've come to the thing that I couldn't put my finger on, which is that we don't give a shit. We don't care about pinball. And I like pinball, but I don't even give a shit this much. And all the books are too expensive, and I'm never going to learn.
Wait, are there pinball books?
There are books?
Yeah, they're all like $100 each.
What do they tell you about?
The history of a lot of them are illuminated collector's guides. Illuminated, what an asshole. They have
yeah, written by a monk in some fucking Alp. He hasn't been allowed to leave his hovel for 10 years.
Okay,
He's just been,
I used to work at a rich
painting
person's library, so illuminated usually follows book with pictures for me. What I meant to say was it has pictures.
Wait, what rich person's library? It was
library
like a singular
study. I got fired for taking tips.
Yeah. Wait, what was your last day like of that? Wasn't it very dramatic?
No, they called me before my shift and were like, just don't come in. And I was like, you're a monsters. You're all terrible. And you treat your employees like shit. We can cut around this.
Wait, why were you getting tipped? In what context when someone was like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna slip
Coat
you
check.
5"? Like
Coat check.
coat check. I see.
See,
You weren't allowed to take tips in coat check.
They changed the rules midstream. I was losing about $400 a month, when they changed the policy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I kept taking tips because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to pay rent, and they were like, "You're fired." So, but anyway, what I meant to say is like the Encyclopedia of Pinball is like $500, and it is a historically researched book about pinball. But most of these fucking books are like collector's guides, and I realize that most people don't engage with pinball as a
written medium. No, why would you?
No, not even that. Most people don't engage with pinball as a game. They it's for collectors. It's for like, there's no like philosophy of pinball. You know what I mean? It was like some dog shit, dirt cheap entertainment they cobbled together during the Depression because it was
a surrogate for gambling. That's why it was illegal in Oakland until 2 years ago or something. Essentially like a mutation of the pachinko machine in Japan, for people to bet on.
Right.
And now we have much better stuff to bet on, like horse races or
Greyhound races,
or human races,
presidential races.
So, but it's really interesting to me as this it's this game that has a distinct art style, a distinct set of rules that have evolved and changed over time. There's a clear sort of artistry to the flow of a table, the ramps, the bumpers, the modes, the drains, etc. But then nobody fucking talks about it. Nobody has a conceived philosophy of pinball the way they have a philosophy of video games. I mean, you could talk to someone about what makes an RPG good, and you'll get 20 different answers from 20 different people, but they'll all be based on a body of work that they've engaged with on a level beyond like pure sport. And pinball doesn't have that. I mean, even sports has that. You know, NBA has, like, if someone's talking about basketball, they have a philosophy of what makes a basketball player good, what makes a team good, and just pinball, as far as I can tell, or at least on the whole, I could be totally off base. I can't afford any of these books, so how the fuck would I know? But as far as I can tell, nobody's talking about pinball philosophically. And except for this guy Adamov, who wrote a play in '59 called Ping Pong that's about pinball. Shit. But yeah, so that's that. As far as I know, philosophically, that's the only thing that's been written on pinball, and its premise is basically that it is a highly competitive and pointless game that involves a lot of bouncing around to no real ends, and leaves you dead.
Even with that though, like it sounds like the main role of pinball in that one is still one of mechanics. Like, I feel like whenever I hear anything about pinball, it's about the mechanics of the machine rather than like any sort of like other theorizing or ethos. Like, it's very much like here are the pieces that put it together. How make ding, how make sounds. Wow, look at lights. Like, it's all very like it's a hardware machine. Like, it is. There's not so much software in it. You know, there's no kind of like soft mushy core. It's just a bunch of pieces, and I feel like that gets fixated on pretty heavily.
Well,
you know, like that.
But pinball has moved on to like solid state. There are computers in the pinball machines now. That's not all just like electronics.
Right. Well, I guess it's maybe a perception thing then. I've been thinking a lot about like various. I mean, I guess maybe this isn't quite true. This is a theory that I will very quickly abandon. I've been doing a lot of thinking about like Ghost in the Machine, like various ways that as technology has progressed, where we see like ghostly influence. So you have, spirit boards earlier on, now progressing towards EVP, which is electronic voice phenomenon, where people say they hear ghosts in radio static. So folks will specifically listen to radio static and like pick out words and say, oh, here, this is someone trying to communicate. And so in all of these devices or televisions, like it's something that you see in the static. So there's something about these where things go a little bit wrong, that people see like kind of a ghostly or human influence. And you see that even in like certain video games, like things that glitch out, or video games that play around with player control, or like video games that which video game is it where one of the enemies was able to like read the information on
Metal Gear Solid.
Metal Gear Solid.
That's what
the
it is.
first
Right,
Metal
of
Gear
course.
Solid.
Oh, sorry. 3 is the one where if you're fighting that old man boss and then you stop playing the game for 2 weeks, he'll die of old age, which
That's
is
right.
also
Really?
very, very good. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's so good. But like even those things like have a very specific human influence or like a specific conversation, and I see the potential for that in pinball pretty obviously, but I don't see that as much socially, or like there's no social context for it. Like, when you think of like haunted machines, pinball may come up in some of it, but it's not as, it doesn't feel as right. I could abandon this. I could see some sort of like kids like PBS show be like, ooh, the haunted pin, like some sort of Are You Afraid of the Dark situation. But I can't recall any sort of like pop culture thing where that comes into play.
the only thing I've found is a pinball machine titled America's Most Haunted.
I'm sure that's very good.
Yeah, that sounds actually excellent.
I guess
Wonder if I
for
can-
me... Go ahead.
No, dog shit, you talk.
I guess for me, the allure of pinball is the sort of human element where you can inflict your will on it. Like, for me, pinball and
Right.
bowling are not that different.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas that's why I guess I was disappointed that Space Adventure Pinball didn't have a tilt function, because without that human element of slamming your body into a machine to make it do what you want, then it does sort of feel impersonal or something like that. Like, that's the thing. It kind of can't be haunted because you have a fair amount of control over it. Like, you could hypothetically punch through the glass and grab the little metal ball and scream at it and say, I am your god, I am your master. It's like it is in your control so much. And yet it's also not, because you're probably not going to do that, and you're probably just going to accept it when it goes directly down the middle of those two flippers, and you'll just put another quarter in.
Yeah. I play pinball.
We got to sign off now.
Okay.
Dearest listener, you did it. Thank you for joining us on this pinball ride. No, that sucks.
Yeah, I hated that. Okay, here. How about this?
Yeah.
How about this? That's all for now. Bye.
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 Yes, no, jogging is body masochism. It's fucked up. I don't support it. If you are jogging, please seek help, because
This is
it's
not the
making your
turn I
mother
wanted to
cry.
take.
This is the hill I will die on.
I agree. Yeah, Amy
Jogging's
Langer's-
fucked up. Amy
Amy
Langer said it first.
First, folks. Jogging
It
is
just-
worse than alcoholism.
It destroys your knees.
I've made a mistake.
So, guys, 1 out of 5
What if I
pinballs
want to run
jogging.
for president?
Jogging gets one. No, actually, well, I think jogging gets 5 pinballs.
I think jogging
I-
gets 5 pinballs.
Ooh, what a strong take.
Jogging gets
Alcoholism
5
also
jogging
gets
gets-
5 pinballs.
Here's why jogging gets 5 pinballs. It's pointless. You're bouncing around. You're doing so much bouncing that it blows out your fucking kneecaps. And all of those little bones in your feet, the metatarsals, they're all rattling around in there like bumpers. They don't know what's going on. You are competing against yourself, right? You're not in a race.
Yeah.
So you're just solo competition, trying to beat your high score of how many miles you could jog before you throw up and shit your pants. And really, you don't have to do it. You could live an entire life and never have jogged and have been
This
just
is the
fine.
Willie Caldwell guarantee.
This is the guarantee.
I cannot wait for you to take up jogging.
I'm not going to take up jogging. I give it 5 pinballs, but in a bad way.